Hi, I'm Nick, and welcome back to another Casually Hardcore video. Today we are doing the top 10 most disappointing games of 2017. Let's dive in. Coming in at number 10, taking the first spot, is Halo Wars 2 with its ridiculously short campaign that felt more like a glorified tutorial than an actual campaign. Halo Wars 1's mission had more character and insight than any Halo Wars 2 mission. Honestly, the replayability in this game, barring multiplayer, was absolute trash. You didn't want to do anything a second time, and then they locked behind the only replayable mode, which would have been Horde mode, behind a DLC that wasn't even included in the Season Pass by the Ultimate Edition. You had to buy the Collector's Edition or buy the extra DLC when that DLC came out. So on top of this game having more DLC than it was glorifiedly told about, this game also had microtransactions for its only new mode. Totally disappointing game. Wasn't the worst, but definitely makes the spot in this top 10 list. Coming in at number 9 is the first Nintendo Switch title on this list, coming from the company that dropped gaming development altogether, being the most hated company of 2016, and then EA took the spotlight, Konami. Bomberman R is a reboot to the series, reintroducing it to a brand new fan base, but it does it in such poor taste. It's honestly the most disheartening thing on this list. Bomberman R is overpriced, should have a price tag of $20, but carries a full AAA $60 price tag. The game is complemented with linear levels that never change, huge difficulty spikes that are only there to increase your playtime, and this game is extremely short, only taking 4 hours to get this entire game completed. It is an absolute mess, and honestly, Bomberman should have been left to be in his grave and should have been revived in this manner. It's kind of pulling a Bubsy. Coming in at number 8 is the first fuck up from Sony in 2017, being Gran Turismo Sport. When the game was announced that Gran Turismo was finally coming back in a demo style, which would have been this game, I was excited as a huge racing fan, and then to only find out that this game has no single player. All of the cars from the previous games are basically no longer existent. They cut down the amount of maps, there's so much less content, and the game is always online. The game just had a huge server issue this past week, and no one was able to play Gran Turismo Sport. This game will be dead within the year, and nobody will be able to play it or do anything in its own involvement. Drive Club is also a better racer than this. Gran Turismo is the racing franchise of Sony. Sony, you need to get your act together. Coming in at number 7 is Ubisoft's massive disappointment, being the game For Honor. When it was first shown off at E3, having 3 historic factions duking it out, and this kind of alternate timeline looked absolutely phenomenal, and the guy announcing the game was really enthusiastic, and you were drawn to the way he talked. Then the game came out, and peer-to-peer servers ruined the game. An online-only game with no dedicated servers in this day and age is absolutely asinine. You have to have dedicated servers in a multiplayer-style game. The progression system was absolute dog shit. It was terrible. The game is locked to basically a Battlefront 2-esque where you get loot. Players that have been playing this game since its debut, God forbid they have been, are dominating the scene. You can't come into the gameplay now and try and fight these guys. They're too overpowered. The campaign is very short. The promises that this game delivered on were nothing. There were nothing that they were showing off at E3, and honestly, this game was a huge disappointment for me and for many others. Coming in at number 6 is Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. After the amazing first 3 entries and the hiatus of the series, fans around the world were rejoicing when Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite was shown off. To see the Marvel license back in the hands of Capcom was very refreshing, only to have the game come out to have no X-Men, not as many characters as the third one, and to have basically every character from the third game be reused and retooled in the new game, and have no new characters to boot. It was very depressing to see, and the graphics looked like they were on par with a PS2 game. A PSP portable game would have been better for this region of a type of game. Unfortunately, Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite is full of terrible DLC practices, ugly graphics, and just ugly all around. Coming in at number 5 is one way to get yourself off to more Sega porn, introducing the new furry addiction where you can create your own characters in the Sonic world, being Sonic Forces. Now this game promised to be just like Generations, doing the dual character split set up from the amazing game that was created years ago. However, this game fell flat with a disappointing story, even for Sonic, and Sonic stories really aren't that great to begin with. It felt extremely rushed, the levels were very dull, the nostalgia was very heavily relied on here, and for a game that's now a sequel to Generations, nostalgia shouldn't be something that they rely on, and it's unfortunate that was the case. Sonic Mania should be a game that they should have strived for, and Sonic Mania is also the game that you should pick up this year. Stay away from Sonic Forces unless you want to create your own furry, but on that sense, just go to the internet, it's the same thing, and it's free. Coming in at number 4 is the absolute buggy mess known as PlayerUnknown's Battleground that released this year officially for Steam and Xbox. The Xbox port is what I will be talking about because that is the game I have played so far. The game is absolutely rushed, broken, buggy. Fortnite is the better game on consoles currently, and it's really sad to say because PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds really developed this whole entire genre, and I wish he would reign supreme, but PUBG was not ready for release. And honestly, it may have sold 2 million copies in 48 hours, but I guarantee you all 2 million of those players are not still playing today. Coming in at number 3 is a game that finally builds upon the fact that if you don't like red, green, or blue, you have more colors to choose this time. Mass Effect Andromeda was the most recent debacle in terms of EA in 2017. The story was very, very drawn out. There was nothing that clarified it together. The side missions were tedious as hell. And back to the story, it was very dull and linear. The game was full of bugs. It was very game-breaking and took you out of the immersion. The open world-esque missions were very, very just boring. There was nothing there to do. It felt like there was just more land. Like, yay, congratulations, you get to drive 10 minutes in real game time to get to your point. There was nothing in the world that made it feel alive, and you felt like you were playing an actual video game. When you're playing a game, you're trying to escape. Mass Effect Andromeda doesn't do that at all, and it's sad to say that the initial reaction to this game has shelved this series for the future time being, and the ending, which was already cheap enough, which Mass Effect seems to be doing with its endings recently, will no longer be fulfilled because the DLC plans for this game have been killed. EA this year has been on a really big streak of ruining games, and Mass Effect Andromeda was the first of 2017 to do so. Unfortunately, Mass Effect Andromeda was not up to snuff what the series was originally. Coming in at number 2 is not worse enough to beat out the first one, but Bungie really has screwed the pooch with this game. Destiny 2 is absolutely disgusting with more anti-consumer practices than most games I've seen on this list to date and most games I've seen in general. Bungie is now a shell of its former self. Destiny 2 completely ditches the 10-year plan with nothing carrying over besides a couple images that said, "Congratulations, you bought our first game and did these things. Goody for you, thumbs up." That's all you get for about $100 worth of content that you paid for. The microtransactions have increased to insane amounts to the point that this previous December's event was literally tied to microtransactions. You cannot get anything from the Eververse without paying money for it. There's no grinding to the extent. Destiny 2 has been a grind for microtransactions. We're going to allow you to grind to pay for us. That is how bad it's becoming. The campaign is terrible, once again, with very shallow characters with a story that makes absolutely no sense. Going back to Destiny 1, Destiny 2 is like, you killed these guys because these guys slapped you across the face. That is literally the story you get in the second one. It's worse than the first game, which is already bad enough for the first one. It's a very shallow hybrid MMO, and it's something you should absolutely stay away from. This game, honestly, is one of the worst games of the year, and one of the most disappointing because Bungie created one of my most beloved franchises of all time, and to see what's happening to them it hurts. It really hurts. Coming in at number 1, Star Wars Battlefront 2. Man, this hurts. This really sucks. This was a game that I was looking forward to for a very long time. EA continuously breaks my heart. It's like a roller coaster with EA. They give me great things, and then they stab me in the back. Then they give me flowers, and I'm like, okay, you're awesome, and then they push me off the cliff. It's just in a very abusive relationship, and Battlefront 2, unfortunately takes the toll of that relationship. Its campaign is short and misleading. You are on the Empire side for about 2 missions, you become all hunky-dory with the rebels, so that thing was all kind of displayed in a terrible marketing campaign, similar to Halo 5 for anybody that played that crapshoot. The story was terrible, the gameplay is basically more or less the same as the first one, and don't get me even started on the microtransactions of this game. The microtransactions were so bad and screwed over so many fans that legal legislation might take place in considering this be a child gambling type of situation. That's absurd. That's absolutely absurd. How could Battlefront be this way? And the sad part is, this game has the makings to be something absolutely incredible, but EA just shat all over it. Honestly, Battlefront 2 feels like an expansion from Battlefront 1. There's not enough new content to keep me coming back more and more. This game feels like a shell of what it could be, and the fact that EA has only released 2 games under the Star Wars license so far is very disheartening, and hopefully Battlefront 3 learns from the first 2 fuck-ups and becomes the game we all desired it to be.